4, 3, 2, 1.
Whether you've been married 1 or 20 plus years, at some point you realize you married into crazy. And that's what our show is all about. If your marriage or relationship is compassionate, real, accountable, zealous and yielding, or just plain crazy, Snooks and Lovey offer love, laughter, and a dose of reality as they unpack this thing called marriage. Sit back, relax, and get your ear hustle on. It's time to start the conversation.
Welcome back to another episode of the Married Into Crazy podcast with Snooks and Lovey.
I'm Snooks.
And I'm Lovey. And as always, we're very appreciative and grateful for you coming back and listening to another episode. Mm-hmm. You could be doing lots of things, but whatever it is you're doing, you're listening to us and we're or watching.
While you're doing it. Mm-hmm.
Yep, exactly. While you're doing whatever it is it may be. So for those of you that are new to the podcast, we are a couple that have been married for 28 plus years. And we've been through some stuff, right? And it's not just about us, but we've been through some things, and that's why we're married into crazy.
Well, but crazy is actually an acronym. It stands for compassionate, real, accountable, zealous, and yielding.
And sometimes just straight up crazy. I mean, think about it. Before we even said I do, 5 days, 6 days after we got engaged, after only knowing each other for 4 months, her ex-boyfriend attacked her, and then as I was protecting her, I ended up getting stabbed through my heart. Mm-hmm. That's kind of crazy.
That's not crazy. That's wild.
And so from there, I had 2 open heart surgeries, survived that. And you would think at that point it's a Disney-esque type story, right? You live happily ever after. Not so.
Are you happy?
4 years later, after getting married, I'm not going to say any names, but somebody asked for a divorce. And rightfully so. It wasn't just out of the blue. There were some things that I needed to grow up in and I needed to take accountability for, but she did ask for a divorce. And so we had to work our way through that. We did not get divorced, thank goodness.
Here we are. And so we figured out a few things, but then along that path, we decided that we wanted to become that couple that we needed as we were going through all of our challenges. Mm-hmm. And so 28 years later, here we are in front of you sharing, and we bring you subject matter experts. We also bring you other couples that share their experiences. And it's all about making sure that we are lifting up the covenant of marriage and letting you know you're not alone. Everybody goes through stuff to varying degrees. Yeah. A lot of people think that they're the only ones that go through it. And in our couple circles, when we're talking, someone's like, oh, because that happens at my house too. So, it's just a way of giving perspectives, different perspectives on how we deal with things. And, we get feedback from how someone else deals with something. We're always learning, from each other. Community is very important.
Yeah. And and opposites do attract. So you've probably picked up on it. I'm very high energy, a little over the top sometimes. She's very laid back, very subdued, very analytical. Drives me nuts. Drives me crazy.
Wow. What?
Very compassionate, real, accountable, zealous, and yielding. Right? So, no. But do us a favor. Go over to, first, before you go over to marriedintocrazy.com, take time, hit that like button, hit that subscribe, and tell a few friends about the Married Into Crazy podcast so we can increase viewership, listenership, and really widen the base so we can get more and more people involved and lift up many more marriages, right? Widen out the community. But also go over to marriedintocrazy.com and look at all the different things that we do to pour into marriages all over the world. Mm-hmm. We do marriage coaching in a variety of different ways. Mm-hmm. We offer this free content, of course, through the podcast, but then there's also coaching that we do one-on-one with couples. But then we also have an app that is available both through Apple and through, what's the other one? Android.
I was like, I don't know. Yeah, Android. Is there another one outside of Apple?
It's Apple and Android.
I know. I'm just saying because everything we have is Apple. So I never think about Android.
We're from the apostolic church.
Apostolic.
No. So, hey, I saw something recently, and this is what I want to talk about today. So I was scrolling the other day looking for some material and just different things. We look at a lot of marriage things on TikTok as well as Facebook, Instagram. Reels, Instagram. So I'm looking at different things, and I started noticing that there were some people. It's funny, some of the things that pop up on your feed, but there was this thing where, because I was looking at marriage, and
there were some kids that were calling out their parents.
Calling out their parents.
You have to speak into the microphone.
Calling out their parents.
Yeah, specifically because there were some young adults that found their parents on dating apps. Like, and it's funny because I noticed if you stay on something too long, all of a sudden, like TikTok and Facebook, they'll start sending you more of whatever it is.
Oh, so now you're trying to say that
No.
I see that little stuff on your phone, it's because you were doing research, not because you was trying to get on the app.
It's like the light bulb goes off. Ding. Yes, that's why. That's why it's on my phone.
All right.
No, but it's true. So anyway, so I saw one. I thought, oh, that's jacked up. Then, and I watched what she was saying and all that. And what do I do? Do I tell my mom and blah, blah, blah? And then it was another one where they found, their mom was on the app. And then they showed their mom's picture, the profile picture and all that. It was crazy.
They showed that?
Yeah.
That is crazy.
And so it got me thinking, like, how prominent is this? How often? So I brought it up to Snooks. So you're going to have to bear with us. So I printed off some stats and some demographics, some different things. I wanted to see, are people really doing this?
Well, apparently somebody's parents are.
And they really are. They really are. So check this out.
I just know my kid's parent better not be.
Yeah, she better not.
He better not be.
That's
all I'm saying.
The top 3 sites that people are actually doing this on, and they're raising this awareness because it is happening. And the best defense is offense. To arm you with knowledge, with information, and this is something that's contemporary. But the top 3 sites, and one of them I never even heard of, are Tinder, and the one that was on Netflix called Ashley Madison.
I've never heard of that before.
And then there's something called BLK or Black. I don't even know. I'm afraid to even look it up because I don't want it popping up on my phone.
Yeah.
But they were saying that Tinder infidelity is shockingly common, between 18 and 25%. So up to a quarter of the Tinder users report being in committed relationships during its use, and 42% of the users admit being either married or in a relationship while swiping.
So for me, I mean, I don't say for me, but just thinking about it, I feel like, should we really be shocked though? Because that is how a lot of people, that's like the new age dating, right? I don't know if people still go out to clubs and they meet people at a club or whatever, but back in our day, that's pretty much how you met folk, is at
True.
the club.
Right.
So if you're older and the dating thing is, I mean, people are more accessible on an app. You don't got to really go out and be looking if you're trying to do something, right? So it makes is so convenient for someone to do that.
It's like infidelity in the palm of your hand.
Well, yeah. Well, think about it too. We were talking about like social media, how that played a big part into a lot of people's relationship, the demise, I should say, of a lot of people's relationships and everything. So now you have these dating apps where you could be at work. I mean, before it'd be like, oh, where were you? I was at I was working, but you was at the club, or I was at work. I really am at work, but I'm still cheating. I mean, it's easy.
That's why. And it's so funny you say that. So when you take a look at the statistics and you dive into the numbers, it's just mind boggling. Approximately 80 million registered users of all these sites. It wasn't one specifically, but they were looking at a bunch of different sites, I guess. But it was saying that 80 million registered users with 15 million monthly active and 2 million daily logins. And they were looking primarily at 3. Again, it was Ashley Madison, this BLK, and Tinder, right? Married users dominate. About 60% of that 80 million registered users are married or in a committed relationship. 60%.
Do we believe that though?
Why would you go on the site and say that you're married?
Because there are people out there who they want that.
It makes it more risque
or something like that. Yeah, I don't want you well, I want you because someone else has you. It's like an ego thing for them. Let me see if I can pull you. It could be, I don't know. And or they don't want to get caught up in a serious relationship, so they go for the married person. They like being the side chick or the side.
You know, there's something to that. Because I remember when I was in the military, I mean, this is real talk. When I was in the military, there were a lot of women that I knew that were single females that only wanted to mess around with the married guys because they felt like, you know, they can do whatever they wanted to do and they didn't have to be bothered with them because they had somewhere else to go. And these females, and I used to kick it with them because these ladies were like, they were like dudes. They were like one of the pack. They were hunters just like we were. When we were out hunting at the club, so were they.
So this reminds me of, there was something that I saw where this lady was talking to a panel, and she was the side chick, and she was talking about like the benefits of being a side chick. So this could play into why some people may say that they're married. I don't know, but the benefits of being the side chick, because she gets all the I don't want to say all the attention, but she gets all the good stuff from the guy. You know, she doesn't have to hear his problems. She doesn't have to hear his whatever. He lavishes her with jewelry, whatever it is that she wants. He gives her the things that he's not giving his wife. So that's why some people may want something like that. I don't know.
Well, it's like a short-term fix. I mean, but from a psychological aspect, what you're going to find is that I think there's a profile that goes along with this. And according to Forbes magazine, so even if you go to Forbes.com, there was a series of articles, and when you boil it down, they said that there was a need for novelty, so something different, a need for validation.
This is what they said, why
certain married people said that they were on these sites, or they identified that there was a need to inflate their self-worth. Like there was a challenge with feeling valued. But there were also some other personality traits that were identified, like neuroticism, extroversion, narcissism, and Machiavellian tendencies. And so Machiavellian tendencies...
I was like, what does that mean?
So it's like Niccolo Machiavelli wrote a book called The Prince back in the day.
I remember that.
But it was about somebody that was, amoralistic, that when you hear that term, the end justifies the means. Mm-hmm. It comes from a Machiavellian concept. Mm-hmm. It just means that you do whatever it takes. So they didn't really have any moral compass. You're sly, you're cunning, you do whatever it takes without any moral compass whatsoever, because as long as I get the result that I'm looking for, it doesn't matter how I got there.
I mean, that just described a cheater. So
they're looking for an end result. They wanted to get whatever they wanted to get.
I mean, honestly, for me, that described literally a person who would cheat, because you don't have, in my personal opinion, you don't have that moral compass of thinking of others.
So
what I'm saying?
Is it really cheating though? If they never meet, what if a person's just on the site looking and swiping and I don't know, engaging? I don't know if you can email through these things or not.
You better not know.
No, I don't. No, I don't know if you can connect with people, like converse or communicate.
I don't know.
But let's say you can. If you can, but you never meet physically, is that cheating?
Yeah. Because why would it? That's like having an emotional affair. That's not. Because a lot of times I think people think of, when you say, oh, they cheated, automatically you think of physical, right? Yeah. But there's emotional affairs. If I'm on the site, why am I on the site? I want to see who's on there. For what? What do I want to see it for? I feel like that's dangerous, because even if you did not have any bad intentions, by you keep on doing it and stuff.
Well, there's bad intentions because...
Well, I'm saying, though, because you asked if it was cheating. But I'm saying, even if you're just, I want to get on there and see what... But the more you you have that in your presence, it makes it a norm. Maybe, I don't know if I'm saying it right, but at some point in time, you might get let me see how this actually works. Let me be a temptation. Now I'm tempted. Now I want to see how I can say, I just want to see how it works. But then I become invested, and then there's feelings. And then, I'm saying that it opens up that door. Like Pandora's box. Why would you open up Pandora's box if you know there's nothing but bad stuff in there?
Well, true. Well, according to the statistics, 40% of users engage in what they term cyber cheating. So you're dead on. And that cyber cheating definition says meaning emotional or sexual relationships online without physical contact. How could it be? Well, I guess show and tell. I mean, like sexual relationships online without physical contact. And it says with 30% of U.S. users admitting to online sexual activities that might lead to in-person encounters. There's that temptation you're talking about. It starts, it opens up the door. Okay, let us not forget that one part of the Lord's Prayer, lead us not to temptation.
Right. Some people that they don't, okay, to them, that doesn't apply. I mean.
Well, it goes back to so it says that there was a need for novelty. Well, people report it having a need for novelty and validation or to inflate self-worth. So that means that the opposite. So the inverse of all those things are for novelty. That would mean that people felt as if it was just humdrum. They're in a rut.
At home.
Right. At home. Mm-hmm. If they needed validation, it meant that they didn't have any value. They felt as if they weren't valued at home. Right. And then the need for inflate self-worth, same thing. There was no self-worth. Like they did. Well, I guess that's more about value.
I was about to say, well, I mean, I feel like the self-worth, that's more something that they have to work on themselves. I can't do anything about how you feel about your self-worth. I don't feel like I can. I understand there are certain things that happen to a person in a relationship where their partner say mean things, treat them bad, that will affect how you feel about yourself, So I guess they could go on there and because they want validation. Like you said, it goes back to validation. Their needs are not being met at home. Mm-hmm. And so now I'm going to go look elsewhere to have those needs met in a Machiavellian way and by any means necessary, maybe. I don't know.
Well, it says that when these affairs are actually taking place, 54% of them are short-term affairs. It was like it's
like a drug. I get a hit and quit it.
Scratching the itch, right? And for people that actually got involved, there was a survey done in 2024 in datingnews.com. And it says that 61% joined for sex, 76% to fulfill a sexual need. I know, what's the difference, right?
I'm like, yeah, what is the difference?
Well, I guess one is 76% are saying that, which is, wow, that's like 3/4 of the people joined because they were fulfilling a sexual need, something that they weren't getting at home, as opposed to somebody that just wanted potentially more sex.
But it still comes down to sex to me.
Now,
but I guess it means something more to that person. I don't know.
And again, we're going off these exterior stats that we're pulling off these sites. Do you think people had reported any regret? Any remorse?
Oh, I'm sure I feel like, yeah, sometimes you do things and you're like, oh God, why did I do that? Because you be in your feelings or whatever.
Well, I'm going to come back to that remorse.
I feel like people who get caught maybe feel more remorse than those who don't get caught.
Well, let me just say this, that particularly for Ashley Madison, there's a whole thing on Netflix. I didn't know about this. Ashanti, our daughter, brought it up. She's like, hey, have you ever heard of this? So I checked it out.
Why is she asking you?
I don't know.
I'm finna go ask her.
But she's the one that brought it to my attention. But there was a data breach in 2015. So this data breach, right, all these people were online cheating. And so in 2015, there was a leak that revealed millions of users that led to blackmail, Ooh, I didn't know this. Suicides and loss of trust.
I want to say I heard that. Now that you say that, that kind of I vaguely remember something about us. You know, you always get those messages anyway about data breaches and blah blah blah, but it was something more along those lines. It wasn't from a Target or, you know, Macy's online stuff. Excuse me, but something that was like, oh, okay, yeah, that kind of sounds a little bit familiar. But man, can you imagine?
But you would think that, okay, that's 2015, so 10, 11 years ago, massive data breach. You would think that would curtail the amount of activity that would take place. You would think that it would shut them down, right? Like, oh my God, there's a data breach. And now
No, that's like not shopping online anymore. There's always data breaches.
So worldwide membership now totals between 80 and 85 million I guess that was just on their site with 130% growth. Yeah, 130% growth post data breach, according to Wikipedia.
Well, first of all, Wikipedia, you can't believe anything they say.
Yeah, true. Okay, do you think that any place in the United States, what states do you think actually are higher than anybody else?
For the website?
Let me give you the data. So in 2024, searches for Ashley Madison, just doing searches. Be careful what you search for because that information gets tallied. But in 2024, searches for Ashley Madison per 100,000 residents.
So what's the highest state that
was doing
used
searches
that website?
that were looking for that website?
I feel like I don't know. I'm gonna say California is probably one. Let me see. Maybe New York. I don't know why I'm saying New York, but because it's kind of like California.
Okay.
Florida, maybe, and
Yeah, just give me 4. Give me one more.
let me see. I don't know. Nevada.
Colorado was number 1. Right. North Dakota was number 2. It's cold. I can understand them.
Excuse me.
Got nowhere to go.
Anyway.
New Hampshire was number 3, and then New York came in 4th.
Well, I was right on one. Colorado,
North Dakota, New Hampshire, and New York. Now, do you think there's any time of year that searches go up more than any other time?
Any time of year. I don't know. I've heard winter.
So based on sex, based on, male or female, October is spike for men.
October?
Halloween maybe?
Right. What? Okay.
They want to take somebody else to the sexy Halloween party.
Wow.
It's before, I don't know, July for women.
Uh-oh.
Independence.
We in July.
Looking for their independence. But, and people were using their everyday phones.
Wow.
And I will say this, that the reason why that there's some reason is potentially because there's been a global normalization of more polyamory. People have been actually getting, I guess, desensitized to long-term committed relationships. Mm-hmm. You're seeing it in these movies. What was that movie with Zendaya not that long ago? It was a tennis movie. She was dating the 2 guys.
Oh, I know what you're talking about, but I don't remember.
I don't remember what it was. I didn't even watch the movie.
There was also that one movie, oh my God, with Salma Hayek. It was a while ago. It was kind of like a drug movie a little bit. Benito del Toro was in it. The girl had the 2 guys. They was doing some drug stuff or whatever, but something along the same lines like that. I
think culture is really lending itself to trying to create an environment in which look at what's going on, like Diddy, and in these parties.
Like, okay, first of all, don't talk about him.
Well, I'm just saying, all the stuff that's going on, everything you're seeing in there, I think it's desensitizing people to the fact that, monogamy is a good thing. Long-term committed relationships are a good thing. And the antithesis of the reasons why people did this, right? Again, going back to the psychological studies and the motivations included novelty, validation, and to inflate self-worth. I had mentioned very early on that the best defense is offense. And I'm sharing all this information not to encourage people to go look at these things, but to sit there and say, it's out there. And the easiest way to, I guess, cyber cheat proof your home is to make sure that you're validating your spouse. Make sure that you're giving them the sense of value and worth within the home, listening to each other, making sure that, that they know that their self-worth, it belongs to them. You can't do anything about that, but that they are valid, that you do love them. And to create novelty, look for opportunities to create novelty. We talked to one of our clients, actually it's not just one, but to multiple. It was really encouraging though, to listen to one of our clients talk about, we had some sessions and they switched up their date nights. Now they're trading things and they're doing new and exciting things because they're switching it up, and they've been married a long time, to introduce some novelty. Not doing the same thing over and over again.
Well, I mean, a lot of that too, I won't say a lot of that, but in order for that to happen, we have to come to the table to talk. We have to discuss the things that are missing, what's wrong, how are my needs not being met? This is what I want. Sometimes people don't say anything and they feel like their spouse is supposed to know, because I've been with you for all this time, so how come you don't know? They think that, oh well, she already know. I could, like you could read my mind, or I could read your mind, or I want you to read it, or I want you to figure it out. What are you talking about? Because how fair are you being if you're not willing to say, this is what I want? You're not being, just keep it real, you're not being fair at all if you don't verbalize what it is that you want, but expect for someone else to know what it is that you want. No, I don't care how long we've been together. I love Pepsi, but I might want a lemonade or something. You know what I'm saying? We can switch up.
Switch buds, they change over time.
Yeah, but you have to be willing to talk about it, have conversations, and ask the hard questions. Am I meeting the needs? How are the check-ins? How are we doing? What is it? How can we make this relationship greater? What is it? What can I do to be a better partner? And take self-inventory also.
Yeah. Remember why you said, yes, I do. And then be willing to switch it up. Look, the check-in isn't just about talking about what's wrong and how I can get better. It's also about checking in about, hey, what's working? What's going well? Can we do more of that? How do we take that to the next level? How do we improve on what we think is really working well? Okay, if it's really good, how do we get from good to great?
Right.
If it's working great, okay, well, how do we turn up the volume on that? Spice it up a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to say, and don't be afraid to, I won't say afraid or ashamed to try something new, to try something different.
Absolutely. You know what? We several episodes back, we had...
In May. About the sex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had the whole month of talking about sex. There's so many different new things. Go back and look at those episodes. We had a doctor on, and I cannot think of anybody's name right now.
Dr. Elliott?
Yep, had Dr. Elliott on talking about enhancing sexual pleasure for men in sex, but also increasing men's health and identifying nocturnal erections and so forth. And then we had...
Laura, is it?
Yep, we had, what was Laura's last name? I'm pulling a blank.
Start with a B, I think. Anyway, she was an intimacy specialist.
She had a whole host of things, and a bucket list, an intimacy bucket list that you can actually go in and take a look at. And having these conversations about, would you be willing to do this? And things change over time. There's things that maybe you weren't interested in before that didn't appeal to you that now it's like, now that you've been, more mature, exposed to the world, seasoned, you're like, oh, you know what? That didn't interest me before, but I'm at least open to trying it now. And you might discover that, things do happen. Things do change, when you used to touch me in my elbow, that didn't bother me before, but now it's like, ooh, that kind of turns me on. You never know. Hey, girl. No, but just be open to it. And then discovering, that whole self-discovery. And like you said, how can I tell you what I like and what I don't like if I don't know myself? Start to have that introspection.
Yeah.
And if you really want to do the whole cyber dating thing, there's nothing wrong with dating your wife or dating your husband.
Right.
Get on your phone and get into
some role play.
Some role play on your phone, going back and forth.
Yeah.
Text each other. Just make sure your kids don't have your phone.
Don't send pics if you.
Absolutely. Look, this stuff is happening. It's out there. Have a discussion about it. Talk to each other, and make sure that you're cyberproofing your marriage to ensure that if there are needs that need to be met, meet them for each other. Find ways to take and grow. Take those things and then grow from it with each other. And if you want to and you just don't know how, it's okay to get a therapist and have those conversations with your therapist together to sit down and say, hey, we want to go there. We want to get there. I just don't know. I have these mental blocks.
I was about to say, yeah, someone that can help you break down the barriers, because a lot of times too, you don't understand why the barrier is there. It could be something from childhood because you were told, don't do this certain thing, and you carry that in your head, and now you brought that into your marriage and you don't understand, well, why is that? Oh, because this person said it. So figuring out those mental blocks.
And it comes from a variety of places. It could be your childhood. It could be from the church. It could be from things that you witnessed, in other relationships, what have you. And, that's dirty and that's not. I mean, look, in the sanctity of your marriage, as long as everybody's safe and you're consenting, everything's on the table.
Go for it.
Absolutely. On the table, on the stairs, on the washing machine, on the couch, wherever, but it's in the sanctity within your marriage. And we want you to have a healthy, beautiful, fun, sexual, intimate, long-lasting, fulfilling marriage. Don't let this phone or anything else become an obstacle or impede your progress in doing that.
No, because honestly, if you were to just think about it, though, if you were to get caught, we didn't go to the regrets. If you were to get caught, what then? You basically potentially will lose what you say is the most important relationship person in your life. Are you willing to take that chance?
Yeah. Well, and this thing, it says that the majority of the people, believe it or not, I mean, if you had a Machiavellian mindset and you're narcissistic and whatever, it does say that despite social taboos, users often report little moral regret, but they still love their spouses. They were doing it in spite of.
Well, I'm just going to tell you right now, I won't love that.
You won't love that? So the answer is no?
Absolutely.
Man, let me delete this app. Well, look, we joke, we jest, but we have to laugh because that's just the way we get down. That's the way we do. So look, if this episode sparked some thought, was a catalyst for some ideas for conversation within your own home, if you know somebody that would benefit from this conversation, share this episode with them and invite other individuals to join and start to subscribe to the Married Into Crazy podcast. And also go over to marriedintocrazy.com and check out all the different things that we're doing to pour into your marriage.
Yes.
Keep coming back. We have some couples, some very interesting couples coming up in the next several interviews. We've got a really interesting one about finding love in prison. It's that prison love, girl.
Well, this is clarify, not
in prison, in prison. Well, if you want to figure out what we're talking about, you got to tune in, check out the next episode. It's going to be a 2-parter. It's that good.
Yep.
So until the next time.
Until the next time, be blessed. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Married into Crazy podcast with Snooks and Lovey. Please like, subscribe to, and review the show wherever you access it, and tell a friend about us. Visit marriedintocrazy.com and see how Snooks and Lovey can bless your marriage directly.